Welcome to Dynamo's Dozen, the podcast that we bring you each and every single week, where we talk about whatever may be on our minds, from pro wrestling, sports, entertainment, music, movies, muesli, fresh shocks and jocks, and everything in between, never forgetting the talc. Welcome back to another episode of Dynamo's Dozen with me, your host, Ian the Dynamo Kelly, and your co-host, the shopkeeper, Niall Hogan. If you hear us sniffling on this show, it is because summer and sun has finally hit Ireland, and of course, with that comes the hay fever. So do forgive us, but we don't look too bad. We don't look too bad.
Today's show is brought to you by Sooters, Sinutab, Paracetamol, nasal rinses, anything we could do. Apparently, the pollen count today is 4 times higher than usually expected, and my nose is blocked.
As well as my can of White Monster, I also have a lovely glass of the old Diorolite as well. I highly recommend Diorolite for people.
Absolutely.
They're not just for hangovers, they are like, they actually work in every sense of the word. Tastes disgusting, but
you're still recovering from Belfast. That's why you're on it.
Yeah, this the post birthday weekend. Yeah, 100%. Post birthday week, should we say? But Niall, Mr. Co-host, what have we got on the agenda today? Because we have a lot to talk about.
Well, the reason we're here, co-host, is because we can't be feeling as bad as a number of people in the wrestling business are feeling today, I would imagine. We're going to talk about Sasha Banks and the potential release. Hasn't been confirmed yet, I don't think, but a lot of talk about it. We're also going to talk about Vinnie Mac and all this stuff that's come out in the last 24 hours between himself and John Laurinaitis. And I've been digging into this a little bit today. There's a nice little slant on this as well that I like to get into. You know how I like to dig into the finances. So I have a nice little slant there on that. We'll briefly talk about a man who we greatly admire, who's a legacy and he is royalty in wrestling, Randy Orton. He's carrying a back injury at the moment, and it looks like he could potentially be out for the rest of the year. Big loss to the company. And a few little bits in between. Whatever comes up or jumps up, we'll cover it.
Yeah, and of course, not to mention the video that is going around about another potential legacy that is slightly getting tarnished recently enough. Our old pal Jeff Hardy, heartbreaking video footage that's come out, the full kind of arrest for the DUI. So we'll talk about that as well, obviously, with Tony Khan coming out and making a statement today as well. So but I'll let you start us off, Niall. Where do you want to start today?
Well, let's start with Sasha Banks, because this is royalty in terms of the women's division. I think most people at this stage know the story about herself and Naomi. They walked out on a show, and both of them, I think they were women's tag champions, and they weren't happy with the direction in which things were being presented to them as tag team champions. Now, Sasha has a bit of history of this, but it sounds like Naomi rode in behind her. And there's kind of conflicting reports about this. I'm not too sure about where Naomi stands in all this kind of thing. Obviously, with her being, I think she's married at this stage to one of the Uso boys. So it's kind
Who's
of
also had a DUI recently enough, no?
A couple, as far as I know. But it's I think it's a difficult one when you look at it, because I think she has shot to huge prominence. Sasha Banks, she's a fantastic wrestler and performer, has the look. She's brilliant on the mic. She portrays the character to a T. But she has had some success. I mean, recently she starred in the Disney series The Mandalorian and stuff like that. And maybe she's looking at a situation now where maybe she wants to make that move into Hollywood, not dissimilar to The Rock or John Cena or someone like that. And maybe wrestling isn't still a priority for her. Who knows? And it's an interesting dynamic as well, because again, if she was to move to AEW, again, my view on that would be it doesn't fit right with me in terms of her body of work and her legacy and what she's done to the women's revolution in evolution as well in WWE. And I think going to AEW might tarnish that a little bit, considering the women's division in WWE is so strong. It's probably the most watchable thing in the brand at times. So that's kind of my thinking on it at the moment. I'm not too sure what way it's going to go. It sounds from the reports today that she's on the verge of being released, and obviously there's a 90-day no compete in there, I would imagine. So you wouldn't see her back on TV if she does want to pursue wrestling through AEW or something like that for 3 months.
I think it would only, because it is all alleged as well. We do like to use that word on the show, thanks to our good friend Finley Martin, who will be joining us next week again. Yeah. There is allegedly she's also handed in a notice as well, so we'll have to wait and see what way that one works out and what comes out in the end, because we know a lot of times the dirt sheets don't get it right, but there's no smoke without fire. Either way, I would say she's probably packing her bag soon, and I think she is one of the female workers that definitely genuinely loves wrestling. Like, you see how she kind of feels about Eddie Guerrero and people like that, and she has a genuine passion for it. So I could see her possibly ending up in AEW for a minute. I don't know. I suppose we don't know enough about her personality yet as to whether she got the acting bug, possibly, but maybe going to AEW would allow her to spend more time doing that too. Do you know what I mean? With the lighter schedule, and probably sees an opportunity there to grow a women's division that, in fairness, has some decent talent coming through. So I suppose this is one where we're just got to put a pin on it, as they say, and flag it and keep it at the top of your inbox and wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I suppose for us as fans, it doesn't really matter whether they release her or whether she asked for her release. The thing is, she's not going to be on our TV for the foreseeable future. And she is a huge loss. But I think what's happened in there as well is, because WWE has grown the women's division so successfully, and I think what happens is there's only a spot at that top level for so many of them. I think what happens is the girls who have brought it to the dance. So you're thinking of, herself, Bailey, Becky, Charlotte. They really brought it to its prominence. They were the 4 horsewomen, if you like. Mm-hmm. And what happens is she probably feels a little bit left out. Obviously, Bailey is injured and has been out for a while. Charlotte obviously has been continually around main event and stuff like that. Becky was off having the baby, came back, propelled straight back into main event. But in that time as well, they've been ground stars. So the likes of Bianca Belair, who's a star, Rhea Ripley, who's a star. So it's kind of packed up there at that top level. So what happens is, if you're kind of a little bit self-serving and you hold yourself in high regard and you feel that you're not at that top level, you probably feel like creatively you're not being handled correctly and you can get frustrated. Now, I would say it is professional wrestling and you're supposed to be professional and you shouldn't walk out on a show. And I would earmark someone like, who I think is a consummate professional, Natalya, who's a girl who's been in there years, who has had all sorts of stupid, gnarly shit thrown at her to do and stuff like that, but doesn't miss a show, never walks out on a show, company woman, always rolls with it and stuff like that. And I think that's, in terms of being a consummate professional and stuff like that. I get it if you're creatively, if you're frustrated and stuff like that, but I think there's other ways to fix that than to walk out and drop a clanger on a show like that. To me, that's very, very unprofessional.
Well, I think so, and I don't want to come across as a hypocrite here, because you know how I feel about this, Niall. We actually had conversations about it privately on the day it happened, and I said, well, look, they should be given their P45s if that's something that they did, regardless of who you are.
Yeah.
And I know before the comment section want to come at me, which I hope they do, so please do. I know they're going to go talk about a certain Montreal 1997, but this was actually weeks and weeks and months in the making here, and it was something a little bit more personal, a different time period where you're talking about your top draws, you know what I mean, and when the belts, let's be honest, actually meant something. This is kind of 2 girls handing the belts back, two performers handing the belts back, it doesn't matter whether it's man or woman, and kind of thinking that they're bigger than bigger than the company in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, that didn't sit right with me. Regardless, everyone knows I'm a Sasha fan. Not so much. Goddamn, what's her name again? Oh, Naomi.
Naomi, yeah.
But yeah, I think it was a bit of a silly decision. So time will tell. I suppose more and more will come out.
Excuse me.
In the coming weeks.
Yeah, well, I like what you mentioned there. The fact that when belts meant something, and you see when this kind of thing happens, belts don't mean something. Whereas,
exactly.
You know what I mean? It's a good angle that you came from there, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we'll just have to keep an eye on it. Look,
back in the day, you wouldn't be taking a belt off someone for love nor money.
No,
You'd be held over a barrel.
Yeah, I just hate when someone has such a legacy and a body of work in a company, and then they walk away from that. They feel strong enough that they need to walk away from that. And look, I'm sure more information will come out about this over time. There's no doubt about it. So
it's purely speculation.
We'll park it and see what happens. But look, there's no doubt they're both fabulous talents. They're both really, really good wrestlers. There's no doubt about that. And look, they've both played a huge part in the prominence of the women's wrestling in that company now. And would be sad if it ended this way. And look, the main thing from our point of view, as long as both girls are happy with their decision and they can live with it and happy with what they're doing going forward, well, look, we wish them the best of luck. That's all we can do, isn't it?
Whether it be in your future endeavors or with the company, yeah.
Yeah.
So I know where you want to go next, anyway.
Well, we have to go to Vince, don't we?
Yeah, I was gonna. You kind of ruined it on me there. I was gonna say from one boss to the actual legit boss.
from the boss to the boss. Yeah. News broke about this obviously in the last 24 hours. I don't know, how do you feel about this when you heard this? I mean,
well, I'll tell you what, before we talk about how we feel about it, give people a little bit of perspective if they're only tuning in now, as to what allegedly has happened with Laurinaitis and Vinnie Mac.
Yeah, well, apparently what happened was there was an affair or something in between Vince and an employee, and a hush payment was paid, allegedly, of $3 million. It was paid out of his own personal money, and it was staggered payment. I think it was $1 million up front or something I'm reading, and then it was like 500,000 over a period of time and stuff like that.
So kind of like when you used to win $1 million on that live show on Raw, but you didn't really win the million.
Like an NDA agreement. Like, you know, when you win the lotto in the States, you have that option. You like, if it's 100 million, you can get 50 million now, or you can get X amount a year and they pay you for the rest of your life, type of thing. But this is what came out, and apparently John Laurinaitis is involved as well. And this has leaked, and apparently this was being investigated since back in April. And the timing of it is really, really interesting as well, because as we know, in April, stuff like that, we know that Hunter had taken a sidestep and stepped away, mainly because of health issues and stuff like that. We know that Stephanie had made the decision to step away and go back into family life. We know that Shano had stepped away and he's starting to pursue his own thing. And we know basically that the marriage that's there between himself and Linda is more a kind of a public spectacle thing rather than
marriage of convenience.
Yes, exactly. And we're hearing today that I think news broke today that that's well and truly over. So that's kind of the background to it. Now we know that the board of directors in WWE are holding an internal investigation. Now, if you look at the board of directors are Vince, Linda, Steph, Triple H, Shane, and probably your man Khan. He's the president. So that's mainly the board of directors. So
they're all. So what you're saying is potentially, or allegedly, or possibly, want to get those words in, they're all just fed up with Vince. So we're siding with Linda.
Maybe thinking outside the box. Maybe they found a way to finally get rid of the old man. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe this is going to be this big. This sounds like the Kennedys, doesn't it? A little bit of the Kennedys, kind of, you know. But
I just wanted to say before you went on there, while it's fresh on my mind, our brother over at Cheap Heat Productions, Cheap Heat podcast. Check them out. Yeah, Morris, good friend of the show, good personal friend of ours. He kind of sent me a few little things, and it kind of refreshed my memory on a lot of the stuff that I remember hearing when I was younger as well. I mean, there's been a lot of these allegations with Vince and former employees, and I use the word allegations. Um, one was obviously the former ring announcer, where there was supposedly something in the back of a limo, a random girl on holiday, at a massage
there's been
table.
a whole platter of stuff down through the years. Like it's just
There's been a lot, like, and that's what I'm saying. I don't want to, I also understand that, a lot of these allegations came out of the woodwork when Trump happened to be president, but nobody seemed to care when he wasn't president. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I do understand that timing
yeah.
can be. The reason I'm talking about timing is because it's interesting, the timeline that you gave us there as you started this kind of story. And if you were kind of a conspiracy theorist or just someone with actual logic, to be fair, it does kind of make a lot of sense if there is some smoke here.
Yeah, and
Um,
I mean, naturally, there's an investigation going on, so we don't want to prejudice that in any way and stuff like that.
no,
That has to take
no,
its
not at
lead,
all.
and it was reported as well to Wall Street as well. So this is this is big.
Bloomberg
This
actually
is
broke the story, didn't they?
yeah,
Yeah.
this is big news at the moment. But the other thing that was interested as well is hours ahead of this bombshell dropping. I don't know if you know this, but 2.1 million shares in WWE was sold off. About hours before this bombshell dropped, and at that time, I think
I didn't know this.
the share price had risen about, I think, either 5 or 8%, and then this sale went in of 2.1 million shares, which is a very unusual amount of shares in terms of trading in relation to WWE. And the timing of that is a little bit interesting as well, because you would imagine with something like this coming out, it would negatively affect the share price. So someone was obviously dumping stuff because they knew something was potentially going to leak.
Something was brewing, possibly, yeah.
Yeah, so that's an interesting take on it as well. Again, I suppose in talking to you about it, it's not something nice that we want to hear, but in reality, are we shocked? I wasn't shocked when I heard it.
I can't say I'm shocked purely because of what I said to you there before. And look,
Yeah.
our listeners know exactly what we're talking about. All you need to do, and look, I'm sure in the coming days, a lot of the past stuff, as it tends to
Yeah.
do in these kind of scenarios, the media will. I mean, listen, a lot of high up people in the media have been after Vince for a long, long time. Probably people in the government too, considering he's beaten them in the past. And I mean, look, am I shocked? No, but am I willing to say what I believe has happened as fact? No, because I can't do that. I'm not in a position, neither are you. We can only speculate, and that's what we're here to do. At the end of the day, we drop news. We're a podcast. We're a source of news and opinion, I suppose. And this is what we can do, is give our opinion on it. And I'm not really surprised when you look at Vince's character over the years, very, very narcissistic. Does that mean I think he has the potential to be what's the word, a predator, if you will? Again, that's pure speculation. And when you're at the top, there are going to be a number of people wanting to bring you down. But then again, what's very strange about this, Niall, is as well, I mean, we've talked about Vince kind of beating stuff in the past. We are still kind of at the tail end of a, Me Too movement and stuff like that. And, we're in a different time now where, like, you got to be squeaky clean in order to beat the judicial system. I think Johnny Depp is one of the first to really do that in a case of that magnitude. That I don't even think was almost not nearly as kind of bad as some of these possible, this particular accusation, some of the stuff Vinny's been accused of in the past. So when you ask me, am I surprised? No, but at the same time, we can only speculate as to,
Yeah, well, as we said, there's an ongoing investigation, and we need to let that take its course before we have any real sort of proper commentary on it and stuff like that. But
well, I do still believe in innocent until proven guilty, and that's why we do have a judicial system. So that's why, and I've always stood by that. So I'm not going to pick and choose when it suits me, like a lot of people in the modern era do.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's really all we can say about it. But there is some interesting events and timing there around sort of Steph moving out of the situation. Obviously, Hunter with the health issues moving, taking a bit of a backseat. Obviously, Linda hasn't been around for a while anyway. She's been trying to pursue her own political career for years now. Shano has kind of melted into the background slightly. And then it only leaves really Vince and Khan, who's the president. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes and stuff like that. The commentary today coming out was that both himself and John Laurinaitis will be at SmackDown on Friday, and it's business as usual. That was the
And what's
commentary that came out today.
Laurinaitis' supposed role in all of this? Is it just knowing
No,
something? Or
I think there was I can't remember what the commentary was, and again, it's all alleged and it's opinion, you know.
of course, yeah.
Apparently there was a hand-me-down situation.
Okay.
That's
so
how
people
I think.
listening.
That's how I think it was described. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. But that's what I read, so I don't know.
And again, it's pure speculation. A lot of our listeners will probably know what you mean by that and the supposed allegations. So we'll see. But an interesting quote from also friend of the show, a tweet today by Vince Russo, and I'm obviously quoting a tweet. It was something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing, and we wonder why these same dinosaurs have been here, that are still here in 2022 and bringing us this rubbish for all these years. It's because they know where the bodies are buried. So Vinny Russo has kind of gone in hard there, and not pulling any punches, and
not unlike Vince to drop a clanger. And I'm sure in his time in WWE, and especially in the time he was in there, I'm sure he seen some let's say unsavory stuff.
Well, he's kind of talked about it on shoot interviews, mentioned a couple of names like Sable and Terry Runnels, and stuff.
But you always get the feeling though that he just brings you to the edge and then just slightly backs off a little bit. I'd say what we've gotten off him so far is tip of the iceberg stuff, really.
Oh, 100%, because he can be accused of the whole hands on the tits of Sable and all that stuff, and he wanted car crash TV. He's always maintained that he loved his wife and stuff like that, and no one's really ever had that on Vinny Russo. So I'd say he's just sitting in the wings waiting to pick the bones like a vulture.
So
we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Other bit of news today, we know that there's a movie being made on the Von Erichs. This is stuff that I love. I can't wait to see this movie. I was a huge fan of the Von Erichs, and
same, yeah.
I think I've watched every documentary and every bit of news, and I still follow Kevin and stuff like that. And the documentaries he's done and trying to, put the family out there and keep that legacy going and stuff like that. Hats off to the boy. He's done a stellar job in a very, very tough situation.
Yeah.
But one Zac Efron has been cast into the movie.
Personal favorite of yours truly, as you know. I will happily admit that of all the modern actors, Zac Efron is definitely a man crush of mine, as they say. Yes, kids, you're allowed to say that. You're allowed to say that a lad is a good-looking, charming man without identifying as a kettle or whatever you want to identify with, or without being part of the alphabet people.
Yeah,
Zac Efron is literally perfect for this role. I'm
intrigued as to see who he actually plays, because obviously there's a number of people in there, and we know that Chris Hemsworth.
Kerry Shirley.
I would have thought so as well. And you've seen the job they've done on Chris Hemsworth, don't they, and doing the Hulk Hogan one. Man, it's incredible what they're able to do. So I wonder, is he going to come in? I wonder, will he central around the whole, the Kerry Von Erich, the Texas tornado, and of course the motorbike accident on the leg and all that kind of stuff. It could be a really cool story if it's done really, really well.
But that's a top level actor that you're getting in, because what I like about Zac Efron is, he started out obviously as a High School Musical guy and all that kind of stuff, but when you look at his body of work, what he's been able to put together, he's kind of gone down the Johnny Depp route and the kind of Brad Pitt route for a while, hasn't he? Where he's not just playing those mainstream kind of Hollywood A-list, top level movies. He's kind of done his own work. Obviously, for anyone that hasn't seen his work as Ted Bundy, he was absolutely phenomenal in that. I mean, the lad keeps himself in shape. He does some really. He plays. He's in one of the new Stephen King movies as well, where he plays like a dad and old guy in it as well. So the kid can act. I say he's a kid. He's probably in his 30s now, but he's very good show, and that would bring a lot of eyes to it. So hats off to Kevin for keeping the family alive out there, because that's a huge gift for them. And
Yeah,
if you
and
say,
especially with Efron as well, because I mean his body of work is quite dynamic, as you said.
oh,
It's not
very
it's
very
not
good
your
actor.
normal run of the mill, So
No.
let's move on. That we'll look forward to that. I presume it'll be a year or so before we see anything anyway. But sure, this is the way they
Yeah.
reported. Man that we spoke about at the top of the hour, Randy Orton. It's been carrying a back injury now that it's gotten to the stage now where it needs to be sorted. So the talk at the moment is he's potentially going to lose the rest of 2022 while he gets this back sorted out. But this is a guy who has been firing on all cylinders now for years and probably could do with a bit of downtime.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you know how I feel about that, about Randy Orton in terms of his ability. I still think he's in the top three on any given day he decides he wants to be. So kind of makes sense as well. The writers weren't doing a lot for him. I know some of that stuff was entertaining with Riddle and stuff, but for me, this guy is, main event level, and I mean main event level, that should be challenging and holding the top belt. You know what I mean? So I think him going away possibly might freshen him up when he does return, and probably give him the vigor and the recovery time that he needs to really come back and be in that top level, because there's no way he shouldn't be competing in main events for the championship.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, all right. It's the timing of it is probably a big loss for them and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Because he's such a top level competitor and stuff like that.
Well, seeing it coming back might soften the blow a little bit.
Yeah, it depends on. I don't know. Are they going to be able to convince him to, come back full time like Randy would be and stuff like that? I'm not too
that's
sure.
fair.
Brian Hebner as well. Brian Hebner is about to announce his impending retirement as well. That's some news that's come out there as well. Just thought I'd put that out there. Just checking here, see if there's any updates on anything else that we've been talking about. Let's talk about. I suppose we should talk about Jeff, shouldn't we?
I literally watched the full 40-minute video there about an hour ago.
Yeah.
Man, fucking sad. For anyone that doesn't know or didn't hear, obviously he's had another DUI over in Florida. Could see quite clearly that he was, a lot of these old DUIs, you used to just hear about them in the sheets. Now we're obviously starting to see them uploaded by, state police and stuff like that.
Everything now is videoed, isn't it? Everything is
videoed. You don't have room to fucking sneeze. But yeah, sad. I mean, he was coherent-ish, I suppose. But yeah, look, we don't need to go through the video and such. But it was sad to see him kind of the way he was. You know what I mean? And the guys being nice to him, and him being such a nice, because he comes across a nice guy. He's not even aggressive when he's arrested. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But clearly issues there. I don't know whether it's a mix of alcohol and medication, or it's just medication, or probably a mix of both. I'm not too sure. But look, this is one of the ones that I don't like judging people on, because it could happen to any one of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of look at it in a slightly different way. One, I do feel it's really, really sad. But two, when you see the situation with Sonny and what happened there, and a guy got killed and stuff like that and all.
Oh yeah.
You have that side of it as well, that he could be driving along and a kid could run out or something could happen, and thank God nothing happened, that he just got arrested and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All, you know what I mean? So I suppose as a father as well, I look at it from both sides as well, that, if that was my kid or something happened or something like that, you know what I mean? I'd be less, let's say, less understanding, let's say, But I do think, and I did call this when I heard he was going to AEW, I did turn around and say the only place for Jeff Hardy is WWE, and the only place in there is to work him as hard as you can, week in, week out, night in, night out, house shows, everything. And the problem with that is that he's probably at a stage with what he's done in his career and stuff like that, that his body is beginning to start to bounce back and go, this is not me anymore. I can't be doing this. But the problem is when you move and you go to the likes of it, we seen what happened to him when he went into TNA. Dreadful. You know what I mean? And this is because these guys are recording shows. They're literally working for, say, a week or whatever it is every month. They have 3 weeks off. And when you have demons or you're an addict of some sort, shape, form, or fashion, when you have a lot of time to yourself to talk to yourself and think about things, you go off the rails. And these guys have to be kept working really, really strong and steady all the time to be kept in line. And I think I predicted this maybe 3, 4, or 5 months ago, whenever Jeff went in and stuff like that. And I said, this is not a good move for that guy. And this is what has happened. And it's really, really sad. And we hope he gets the treatment that he needs. But this is not the first rodeo for this guy. You know what I mean? He needs to really, this guy has responsibilities and all now. You know what I mean? He can't be going around like this blasting, and certainly not behind the wheel of a car. It's not like he ain't got the cash to ring an Uber or ring a taxi or get a bus or whatever the hell it is. You know what I mean? This guy ain't broke. You know what I mean? And I just think sometimes it's hard, when you're dealing with a guy like this, to go in hard and stuff like that. There's a certain level of this at certain stages when you've gone through this so many times. A bit of growing up needs to be done and a bit of responsibility needs to be taken on, and I hope he gets the treatment that he needs, and I hope he gets well. I've been a big fan of him for years. I love him to bits. I met him in the Impact Zone on numerous occasions when I was over there. He was lovely to me. He's a great guy. But I just think, there comes a time where you have to turn around and, say what has to be said. You can't keep on putting an arm around people constantly all the time. You know what I mean? You eventually have to say, now it's maybe time to grow up and stuff like that. I think he has a kid as well, doesn't he?
I'm not 100% sure about that.
I'm not too sure, but I'm not too sure. Maybe he does, maybe he does. Not too sure. I might be confusing him with Matt, but
Matt has a few, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. I think there comes a time where you have to take responsibility as well, and and I just think a guy like him, he just needs to be kept busy. I think he's so out there, and the funny thing about this is, like, there's been telltale signs of this already. I mean, a number of guys went to his concert when we were over in Dallas for Mania Week, and they said even that night they were at the concert, he was doing a concert with his band and stuff like that, and they were saying he wasn't in a good place. That, like, the concert was basically a disaster. So, like, it's not like people didn't know.
I think that's generally the case with his music, to be fair. Anyway,
yeah, but I'm talking about a guy who was sitting on a stool singing into a mic, and he was practically horizontal from what I see.
Right.
So I'm not talking about a guy who mumbles into a mic and this is his stick. I'm talking about a guy who was kind of like missing the mic, you know what I mean? So I'm just saying, this is just what I was told from guys who were at it. They were saying they were making claims about this is where he was and stuff like that. But, like, people around, like, he didn't just suddenly go out that day and get blasted. This is an ongoing thing with this guy. And I thought the statement from AEW, I think, was decent. I think that's the way they had to react to it. They're going to support him. They're going to get him the help that he needs.
Well, Tony Khan was spot on. In fairness to him, like, for all the grief he gets from a lot of people, he definitely does look after his talent and does care about his talent. I don't care what anyone says on that one. He does. And I mean, Moxley is case in point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a success story so far. So hopefully, you know what I mean? It is one of those things, unfortunately, with wrestling, where we're looking at someone going down a path that has caused us to lose so many in the past. And, you can lead a horse to water, as has been done so many times in Jeff's case. And, like, oh, well, if you overwork him in WWE, well, then he's just going to be, it's going to happen again because the pain medication is so necessary for him.
Yeah.
And then, it's a double-edged sword, really, with this one. I suppose the only thing I could say is just wish him well and hope that he does. And
absolutely,
he definitely has support around him anyway. There's no doubt about it.
I think he's always had that support, but I think when you're in that position, you have to want it enough yourself, don't you? I mean, that's what they really say.
It's really stops with you, know.
Yeah, the one thing I would say, I mean, he has such a legacy in wrestling, and he's beloved by the fans that follow him and all. And we just don't want this. I don't want the Jeff Hardy story, and we've said it before, to finish like a Dark Side of the Ring episode. That's not the way this should end. This should end with him, doing really well in the business, and then send it off when it's time to send off. And maybe I don't know, maybe one day becoming an agent or a coach or a trainer or whatever it is, something that
Yeah,
just keeps them busy and involved in the business.
yeah,
Because it just seems, I think at times just with these guys, when you have too much time on your hands, that you're going to revert back to, where you believe as an addict your comfort zone is.
yeah.
And then when you get behind the wheel of a car, that's a totally different conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I suppose it would be worth talking a little bit about, finishing up on some positive on-screen stuff. Obviously we have the AEW New Japan stuff coming up. There's a bit more clarity coming out with some of the matches. Some of it's looking very interesting. Seeing Tanahashi and Moxley in the ring face to face is interesting. Like we talked about last week, it'd be interesting to see where that goes. They're putting a lot of money behind it. We're seeing it on YouTube every other 2 minutes. The ads from Fight TV. They put a lot of promotion into it.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward. Hopefully they do this right. You know what I mean? This could be just one for the purists.
Yeah.
If they do it right. So that will be interesting. And then, looking at I suppose we didn't talk too much about it last week, just a little bit, but talking about obviously the heel turn, what seems to be the heel turn of Balor.
Yeah.
And probably the return in babyface Edge. And probably wishing he didn't cut that lovely mane of hair that he has now right about now. But
he's one of those guys where it doesn't take too long to grow back.
That's it. He cut it just at the right length as well, where it'll start growing again.
Still a bit of weight in it. Yeah, still a bit of weight, as they say. Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to talk about that because the Balor one is interesting, isn't it? Because it looked like he was kind of standing as the leader of the group, and the other two kind of just admiring his decision, and it was a pretty vicious attack as well. It was pretty one of the best kind of things they've done in recent times.
Yeah.
And we just got the small little snippet on Raw last week, not giving too much away, with them kind of all standing there in the dark, almost brutish. So I mean, this really lends itself to the Demon being a lot more prominent going forward, doesn't it?
Yeah, or maybe an evolution of it, a kind of like a variation of it, or something that he feels comfortable that he could do week on week or bring to a pay-per-view more often. But certainly, look, you know my thoughts on it. Anytime that guy's being used properly and he's prominent on the show, I'm a very happy guy. You're a very happy guy. We've had enough shit over the last couple of years to deal with him, and we know the talent that's there. I'm a big fan of Priest. I think Rhea Ripley fits into that faction brilliantly. She looks the business when she's in there. And it was a weird one because I just thought the three of them were going to jump Balor. So they caught me off guard, and that's a good thing.
It's always nice when that happens. So that'll be one to watch, obviously, going forward. That's about it for this week. Unfortunately, not all great news that we had to bring this week, but needs must, and our listeners have a lot of needs, and we thank you for tuning in each and every single week. And
if people know our history on these podcasts, they know we tackle the good with the bad, but we never shy away from the bad.
No, 100%. But Niall, once again, it's been a hell of a show, and I suppose we're going to have more next week. We're going to know more. We'll have more clarity on what we've spoken about today. Hopefully it's not all as negative as this week has been. But I suppose until next week, for the shopkeeper, Niall Hogan, for Ian the Dynamo Kelly, this has been your weekly fix of Dynamo's Dozen, and we are over and out.